All right, and good morning, everyone. This is Chris Riccio at Inflow Communications. Let's go ahead and get started. We did allow a couple of minutes for late arrivals. We want to thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate that you put time aside to attend our educational webinars. For those of you that are familiar with Inflow Communications, we do webinars monthly as a way to educate customers and others about the industry of contact center and products in general. Our next session, which will be next week, which will be December 20th at 10 a.m., we're going to be covering Enterprise Contact Center, that's ShoreTel's Enterprise Contact Center, and configuring the screen pop. So put that on your calendars and you'll get a reminder as well. So I'm Chris Riccio. I'm the Director of Contact Center and Advanced Applications here at Inflow Communications. I have 20+ years of contact center consulting, engineering, and design experience. Part of that experience has actually been on the customer-facing side, so I draw a lot of my techniques and how I leverage my engineering skills and consulting through my practices, having been both on the technical side, customer-facing side for many, many years before branching out into vendor opportunities. Now, one of the things that we focus specifically on here at Inflow Communications is education in the marketplace. This is education for anyone. We have an extensive knowledge base on our website that includes blogs on contact center as well as PBX. There's various videos on how to do certain tasks, whether you're configuring PBX, SIP, dealing with contact center, etc. So I encourage you to visit our website and take a look at our extensive knowledge base, which we're always adding content to. One of the things that when I first came to Inflow Communications, and I've been with Inflow Communications now for a year, and that was after having spent 3 years with ShoreTel as their contact center expert on the West Coast, one of the things that I brought to the table was the concept of the Contact Center Success Manager program. Now, contact center is interesting because it's not simply just about hardware and software. Contact center is most importantly about the operation. And this is one of the key pieces that is often neglected from a partner point of view or support point of view. So our Contact Center Success Manager program, our goal is consulting and training. And the goal is really to provide product insight and operational value. If I can put that simply, my experience has taught me that products are simply products. However, how I use them in my environment really requires looking at the nuances of my operation and the personality of my operation. So it's with that in mind that our Contact Center Success Manager is built on working with our clients side by side to create a business consulting service for our customers to help them extend and advance their operations in their contact center. Of course, leveraging products and services in the best way suited for their environment. And we do that through product knowledge. And the operational value that we bring to the table is, number one, understanding the products first and foremost. But anyone that has been a customer of products and technology understands too that most applications have nuances about them. Typically, a user manual or an administrator guide does not cover all the sorts of obstacles and processes that you will encounter on a day-to-day purpose. So we provide product knowledge through application nuances by really leveraging what we understand about your operation. And that leads us to what I call practical application. I think applications and products give us lots of tools to play with, but really it comes down to practical application. What am I trying to do in my specific environment? And this is what I call practical application. How do I use it for me? No two environments are the same, so leveraging the product specific to my operation is critical, and this is how we provide lots of outcome value, getting to results. And lastly, supporting the customer. Our customers, oftentimes you'll find that partners, resellers will support the customer from a product point of view, which is really commonplace, but we're also supporting our clients with industry knowledge and industry trends. That's the basis of our webinar session here, is to constantly keep our customers and others abreast of what's happening in the world today, leveraging technology and what we encounter. So that's kind of how we put our philosophy together for the Contact Center Success Manager program. Our goal is really complete contact center support and education. What I like to refer to the Contact Center Success Manager program is really bridging the gap between product know-how, industry knowledge, and operational value within your contact center, and something that's often forgotten. IT knowledge and resources. How do I leverage what's available to me within my organization? And having been on the IT side, one of the things that is consistent across most contact center operations is this sort of yin and yang between IT and the contact center. IT has a specific role and job, and then it's not necessarily understanding contact center. What we're looking to do is also provide IT with a level of knowledge that leverages their best experience and what they do best to facilitate the contact center operation. So with that being said, let's get into today's topic, which is the enterprise contact center. More specifically, we're going to be addressing multi-channel and omni-channel, terms that have been often confused, and I want to sort of take a swipe at giving us a difference and distinction between the two and how they differ and where the industry is going in relationship to both. So here's our agenda today. We're going to cover the ever-changing contact center. More of like a historical, where have we been and how did we get to where we are now from a contact center point of view. I think it's worth mentioning how all the pieces fit together and how the contact center came to be what it is today. We'll definitely define what is multi-channel and some of the challenges that are presented both operationally and from a software point of view related to multi-channel. We'll talk definitely about what is omni-channel, the distinction between the two, but they kind of go hand in hand. And I think available for download after today's session is a recent white paper blog post that I put together, which discusses how multi-channel and omni-channel really go hand in hand. And we'll talk about omni-channel and some of its challenges that it presents to the contact center operation. Most importantly, we'll talk about the foundation of omni-channel and multi-channel. Really what we're addressing here is integration, the concept of how information is what's driving the root of the omni-channel foundation. And we'll talk about that process in a little more detail. And lastly, I want to leave you with one of the products that is emerging over the last 2 years that Inflow Communications has adopted a cloud contact center omni-channel option that you may not be aware of. Now, there are several cloud options for contact center. I'll get into more detail about why I believe one application may serve better than others. And when I look at an omni-channel option, there are some key things that we're looking for. The cloud opportunity that we're going to look in detail is Interactive Intelligence PureCloud. One of the things that we want to point out is that it's developed on AWS, Amazon Web Services. So when I say developed on, I actually mean developed with the technology. It has built-in APIs, webhooks, and web services that really, at its core, is an application custom ready for multi-channel, omni-channel. We'll see that in just a moment here. So let's get into sort of a historical perspective on the contact center, where we've been and what we've seen, at least in the 20 years I've been in the industry. I remember these phases of the operation, probably more than I should. But the changing face of the contact center is always evolving with technology. And where it all started really was, historically speaking, the contact center wasn't a contact center at all in the beginning. From an industry perspective, the contact center really was a telemarketing center. And that's where sort of contact center was born out of, but also got a bad reputation in terms of what perceptions were of the contact center. At that point in time, it was better known as the call center, not the contact center. Contact center came to be in our vernacular more in the mid-90s when there was the advent of technology and the various ways that clients reach out to us. But back then, the contact center, when it first all started, was typically known as the call center. And their primary focus was really just taking phone calls. Whether they were inbound or outbound, they started out really with telemarketing, heavy emphasis on trying to capture the sale and reach out to clients. Also, telethons was a big deal. I remember watching telethons on TV, and even today, you have a panel of folks answering phone calls, and that's sort of the image that most people have in that perspective, even though we know it's highly sophisticated today. And a lot of times they were seen as boiler rooms where they just threw a bunch of desks down, phones, and had people start making calls. So that was sort of where it all started from the contact center perspective. Where things are changing was the introduction of the intelligence of ACD, or automatic call distribution. Now, automatic call distribution was built-in intelligence, which was really geared towards routing callers to agents systematically. And the real focus was getting the caller to an individual best skilled to handle their interaction. And just for a fun little tidbit of history, the first deployment for a contact center, or ACD, was actually with Continental Airlines. I found that interesting. Now, the benefits of having an ACD delivery system is a systematic delivery to individual agents, whether it was longest idle, which often cured the imbalance in workload on the floor. There was also the best skill fit, which we all know is get me to an individual who is best suited to handle my particular inquiry, and this could be language preferences, and there are such a variety of ways today, especially with technology, where you need a skilled, knowledgeable professional to handle your inquiry. But this all got its start in ACD, automatic call distribution. Now, adding to the ACD, there was, I believe it was about the forefront of the 90s, the concept of CTI and self-service through extending IVR. At that time, IVR was typically used and understood as an interactive voice response. Make a request, get information, and go on my way. And it was really geared towards self-service application. CTI, which is computer telephony integration, was sort of at the forefront of that. That was the concept of how do I control my phone and its activities through a computer. And so it did offer at its core, data connectivity, and probably the most important concept out of that was the ever popular screen pop. Whenever I go into a client and they're trying to evaluate new software, the first question after you talk about what the product does is, can you show me a screen pop? Does it do screen pop? As part of the growth of the CTI was the IVR, which allowed clients to offer extended services to individuals calling the contact center through self-service options. And the goal really was to recognize the caller. And this is the same of both CTI and IVR. The goal really is to recognize the caller, whether it's through looking at caller ID or asking them to input their account number or some piece of information specific to them. And in doing so, they were given access to data about their account, typically in a CRM, and that's sort of where contact centers sort of birthed the CRM movement. And today there's quite a few CRMs, but the whole intention here through CTI and IVR was to gain access for self-service options. It's also used to provide data to agents. And we're going to talk about how that merges here in a moment, and this sort of starts giving us the building blocks for Omni-Channel. So providing data to agents through the screen pop, that was the first foray into it, but it also has been extended into many more options. Especially when we start talking about Omni-Channel, it becomes much more important, the concept of access to data. We talked about providing the screen pop, that goes without saying, so I'll just say it one more time here. Now, with the emergence of ACD and IVR, the contact center ACD has actually changed and has begun to morph. And over the last many years, most ACDs now have an element of IVR. And in fact, some of them, the IVR process manages the ACD. But with that, it allows such a different environment. Leveraging ACD and IVR managing that process allows us in most cases to access data, whether it's in a CRM or some other application. And with today's technology, your customer information is contained in a variety of portals. And this is where the advantages of IVR-driven ACD come into effect, because with allowing and by allowing access to data, you can truly create a dynamic ACD leveraging the customer-specific data. The goal specifically is a more intelligent way of routing calls through the ACD, but also a more personalized experience for the customer. One of the things that I've always understood and appreciated about the accessibility of data is that I can turn the contact center to a very personal experience, both from the customer point of view, but I can also use that data integration for managing the business as well. Now, what I always say with data, if you have access to it in the ACD, make it personal. You're really talking about branding the experience to the individual that's calling. And when I talk about ACD, we've all been through ACDs and contact centers, whether by phone, email, or chat, and we go through sort of a generic process. But with the advent of accessibility to data, I can customize the experience on a call-by-call basis and not simply by the generic ACD. This has tremendous implications for customer satisfaction, but it also gives us the ability to collect data and drive analytics. And this is really where technology is today and has been, and this is not something new. Data and the need for data has been brewing for quite a few years, and Contact Center has really grasped the concept of it, and I really relegate all this to the power of big data, because if you understand the relationship of the ACD, IVR, and how you can leverage data, you have a much better way to affect change and the customer experience within the contact center. So now let's talk about where we are today. Welcome to 21st century, really, as I like to put it, is that big data is everywhere. Data drives every aspect of what we do. Most every contact center today that I've visited as well has an element of big data, whether it's in a small database or extended BI applications. Those are business intelligence applications where heavy analytics are at play, not simply just looking at the customer data, but analyzing what our customers need, what they're looking for, and more often the data is used to make decisions about retaining the customer, upselling the customer, keeping them for the long term. The challenge with the 21st century, with the advent of mobile applications, Androids and iPhones, and the SMS, and the ability to go to a website and have a web chat session, is that customers want a single experience across all media options. And for all intents and purposes, you know, the contact center has developed rapidly, whether it liked it or not, because the customer owns the option. Today, if I'm a customer and I'll talk from my personal experience, I prefer not to call a contact center when I'd be better served by going to a website or going through a portal where I can access information myself. And largely, most clients today, it's said about 75% of clients would rather serve themselves before calling the contact center. And because of that, they have choices and they own the options. And the options could be varied. They could be a phone call, they could be an email, things you already know, probably dealing with today. Yes, there are still faxing options out there. When you get into healthcare, there are a lot of faxing options in healthcare. Web chat is certainly becoming the medium of choice for anyone that's visiting a website. If I'm a customer and I visit your website and I see a chat option, that's the best way for me to get to the heart of my situation without having to pick up the phone. It's a matter of convenience. Add to that the emerging prevalence of SMS and social media. Now, it's interesting. Having been in technology for 20 years, I'm not an early adopter of technology, but I will tell you, naturally, I have begun to lean on a certain technology because it represents convenience and ease of use for myself. Primarily, SMS. Today, I can book my dental appointment through SMS. They actually send me an SMS and I respond with confirmation or change date on the fly. And then if I decide 2 minutes later to call the office, they've already got that information available. And they also put me on a rotation to remind me of my regular checkups for cleaning and things like that. That also happens with my chiropractor. So SMS, while some technologies I'm not an early adopter, I had waited to utilize, I'm now leveraging the benefits of that because now I no longer have to manage those things on my own, and it gives me a much easier way to communicate and take care of myself and my own life. So I like to say welcome to the customer's world, really, is where contact centers are at. The customer is king in the context of the contact center. I think in most forums that I've addressed over the last couple of years and sessions that I've sat in and have been able to watch others present, is that the customer is driving everything about the contact center, and it's all about the customer journey. What are we doing to maximize retention of our clients? And it really comes down to multi-channel and omni-channel and understanding how these pieces play together. With so many options and choices, customers are really dictating how we should operate and what tools we must have in place in order to retain them as clients. Now, that's not to say clients or customers are going to use all mediums. You may have some that will only use SMS and web chat. And this is particular to certain industries. Healthcare and finance and banks tend to be a little more sensitive about compliance information, so you may not see that there. But the reality is, with the availability of technology, the future is only going to hold a continued evolution for contact center. And really that's going to force clients and providers of services into a mindset of the customer journey, thinking about the customer. And when you think about the customer journey, not only is it how are we servicing the client, but what level of effort is required of our customer in order to gain support for services. I'm one of those clients who tends to frown a little bit if you put me through several paces to just get to an end result. And I also look for a seamless experience, and this is what customers and service providers are focused on. What is a seamless experience, and can I provide a seamless experience regardless of the chosen media? So let me give you an example. I have a cell phone service like everyone else. I won't tell you who it is because I'm about to make a comment that may not be seen as positive, but I recently called my contact center, or the contact center provider of my phone service. I wanted to upgrade my plan, and I went through the IVR process. I entered my information. I was able to automate and see if I was available for an upgrade. All these things are great, and I included my account number and my phone. But when I opted in to actually talk to a sales rep about my contract terms, what was the first question they asked me? Can I get your account number and phone number? And to me, that just makes me wonder, with all the advances in technology, and this is a tier 1 provider, how is it that you missed the opportunity to share that information? And what that really required was my having to step back almost at square one when I had already done the preliminary work in the IVR, and now that I'm talking with the sales individual about my contract, I had to start over. And that's really sort of what is the genesis of multi-channel, omni-channel. So let's define these terms, let's separate them, and then we'll talk about how we bring them all together. Defining multi-channel. So what is multi-channel? Multi-channel, simply put, it's the various ways in which customers choose, and I think that's critical, to communicate with your contact center. Whether it's by phone, by web chat, IVR, email, SMS, the obstacle this presents, however, in providing multi-channel is not necessarily multi-channel in and of itself, but it's most applications. When you look at multi-channel, they are application silos, and they have disparate repositories of data and information. So then that gets us to the scenario where if I'm transferred in, I have to ask the question again, what is your account number? And that's because data is across different apps, and the information may not be shared across those apps. And oftentimes, multi-channel puts us into a cumbersome experience, both from the customer point of view, certainly that was my experience, as well as from the agent point of view. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. And with multi-channel, there is a level of integration required. Now, the term integration doesn't have to be a scary term. Thankfully, more and more applications are built with integration in mind, which has changed the cumbersome developer's mindset to a more point and click. Let me just install applications like I would on my iPhone or my Android. So that's sort of the mindset that we have moved into, but there is a level of integration required. Continuing on the multi-channel, let's talk about some operational challenges. With multi-channel, because they're siloed operations typically, or applications, sometimes operations as well, agents will likely use separate applications in many cases for each type of communication. And it's not uncommon that I've been to a contact center where the client will have an ACD system for phone calls, and they'll have a entirely separate web-based application for web chat. And there's inherent obstacles with that. One of the challenges too for the agent specifically is application ease and training. When you have disparate systems, you spend more time training them on the different systems or interfaces, and oftentimes different processes. Typically, it requires a level of integration. So if you don't have a built-in mechanism for web chat on your ACD contact center solution, you've got to bring in some integration to bridge it together. And the number one challenge most of this presents to the director of a contact center or the supervisor is reporting. Anyone that's been in the contact center lives and breathes by reporting, and this is such critical information. So presenting a solution with reporting challenges on top of the need for multi-channel that's the #1 challenge I see, is reporting challenge. So it's a disservice across the board. That's not to say that people are not effective. I just want to be clear about that. Now, let's define omnichannel. Now, the concept of omnichannel is basically unifying accessibility and data across all channels. Essentially, the concepts of omnichannel is creating one global channel. Whether the call or communication from your customer comes in as a phone call, or through web chat, or is transferred in from an IVR or SMS, all these things are critical. But when you can unify those into one communication experience, this is really what omnichannel. So you can see already how multi-channel and omnichannel sort of go hand in hand. And over the last 1.5 to 2 years, omnichannel has gotten a lot of press, and consequently a lot of clients have become confused. So omnichannel really is unifying all communication, multiple channels, into an omnichannel or one channel experience. And the benefit of that is really it's a nimble process with the customer in mind, but I'll also say with the agents in mind as well. And this could be a phone call, an email, a web chat, SMS, mobile. We've talked about those among other applications, just to reiterate. Now, the omnichannel trend, moving into omnichannel. The trend is actually moving towards all-in-one applications. And this is what customers are looking for now. In the last year, more and more clients are looking for a singular application. In the context of contact center, there are a variety of tools that are almost today required in every contact center. You first have the ACD. Then you have workforce management, so you can schedule appropriately. Then you likely have call recording and QA modules, the things that require multiple applications. And of course, IT has a perspective that they have to help you manage and maintain those. The benefit of looking at all-in-one applications is that you have a nimble process with the customer in mind, and again, with the agent in mind. If you can bridge all this together, you have a focused effort on the customer. Omnichannel, the basis of omnichannel is a focused effort on the customer experience. It unifies communication, and I'm talking about the physical medium of data across systems, so that if I confirm my dental appointment via SMS 2 minutes ago, then I pick up the phone and call my dentist, they see that I've confirmed my appointment and then ask me questions along those lines. That's really what folks are looking for. It unifies the customer journey. So again, my example with the dental appointment, I confirm my appointment by simply responding to their SMS. Capital C means confirmed. And then when I pick up the phone and call them, they're likely going to say, oh, Mr. Riccio, I see that you've confirmed your appointment. How can we help you today? They've picked up from where I left off. And that's really focusing on unifying the customer journey. It's about easing accessibility to data. And that's really the foundation for omnichannel trending that you're seeing. Now, the omnichannel challenge really is relating applications and communication. How do you get the applications to converge? The best way and the only way really is through data. Data, big data, not only are we talking about historical analytical data from our applications point of view, but sharing information across mediums. And the underlying focus is always systems integration. So to jump to an omni-channel solution requires that you really do some thoughtful planning on how will I access information and share information across platforms. The requirements for doing this is really shared data accessibility. That has to be rule number 1, because each application needs to know what each application is doing and what its updates are. Integration can take on various forms, whether it's through APIs, web services, web hooks, which is the ability to communicate between applications through web portals, especially when we're dealing with so many web-based applications. So having an online CRM, have the ability to communicate with an online appointment book, for example, would be key to understand. So web hooks and cross-platform communication is really at the basis and foundation. These are the requirements for establishing a great omni-challenge solution. Can you do it overnight? Likely no. It does take some thought and planning for that, but the importance of omni-channel can't be understated, because it's really about the customer experience. And with the focus on customer experience and retaining clients, customers are demanding a better experience. And what the customer wants is convenience. They want it to be easy, friendly, responsive. And the net result is, if by not having any one or all of these capabilities, the risk is losing the customer. So Omni-Channel really intends to focus on the customer experience as a total experience, not simply what's my experience if they're in the phone, but when I go to email or to chat, am I getting the same unified experience? And more importantly, is the customer having to start from ground zero each time they communicate with you? And typically in tech support, where you have a long dialogue, that's where it's the most frustrating, but even any sort of communication. I think the risk to losing the customer is really clearly where everyone's focused and the experience for the customer. So let's talk about the foundation Omni-Channel. As I said, it was integration, APIs, and web services. So laying the foundation, the first and most important thing is the key is integration. Omni-Channel customer service portals require that you extend applications, and usually through development at a cost. There's almost no way to get around developing processes to help applications interrelate to one another in focusing on the customer experience. Contact centers that have been on the edge of data integration will be at the forefront of this change. And this is something that I've talked about many years. I know that since the mid-90s or maybe the late 90s, more focus was focused on the integration and CTI integration, accessibility of data through IVRs and the screen pop. And contact centers that have been nimble enough to start laying the foundation where they have a database repository, especially if they're merging data into a separate database for unification purposes, they're going to be moving into Omni-Channel with a bit more ease because they've laid the foundation. It's sort of, once you have that foundation in place, leaping into Omni-Channel is not a huge task. But for the consumer who hasn't had the benefit of that sort of level playing field or setting the groundwork for that, the other alternative is looking for all-in-one applications that provide the ability to springboard you forward into what today's demands are. And there are some really good cloud and Omni that provide Omni-Channel solutions amidst their total solution, which has multiple channel support, of course. The need typically is cloud applications offer a robust solution with multi-channel, omni-channel. And that's what most clients are looking for that I discuss applications with. They want to get it all in one place. They've been through the pain of multiple disparate systems. They're looking to impact their customer journey, and their executives are telling them we must fix this so that our customer experience results in the retention of clients. And that has to begin with integrations. Now, the good news. Many cloud options, I'm going to show you one here in just a moment, are understanding this purpose, and they've built in options that allow the ease of migration. They allow the ease of communication between applications. Many applications that are developed today are developed with an open API mindset. The open API and open source was kind of pushed down technology through some renegades several years ago, but everyone has understood the value. If I create and provide an open API for my customer, let them develop on top of what we provide, that makes the customer more sticky, and they become a proponent of your application. These integrations also would include web services and webhooks, which allow you to interrelate data and communication, especially web-based applications, which many contact centers have opted to do away with premise-based solutions and have gone to web-based applications. The need for webhooks is really important. The ability for a Salesforce to talk to myappointments.com is really important to the customer journey. So let's talk about the emerging applications, and one of the applications that I have really devoted a time and attention to is PureCloud by Interactive Intelligence. It is a cloud-based all-in-one solution. It's multi-channel, Omni-Channel, and the PureCloud by Interactive Intelligence, which if you haven't read the press lately, has been purchased by Genesis, so they are now one company. But the PureCloud application provides a robust multi-channel solution with Omni-Channel at its core, and this includes the multiple channels of phone, voice, fax, a dialer, email, web chat, social media, IVR, all the things that I've highlighted. And one that I think is critical as well is the last one there, the agent desktop workflow. This really is a platform for multiple channels of communication, but it's built with Omni-Channel in mind. Taking a look, they've created an agent interface, which is a browser-based interface which handles all interaction types, and this includes the channels I've listed below here. We're going to walk through the application, and I'd be happy to show anyone the application one-on-one if you need to have a deeper dive in it. So this will be just a glimpse at the application. So on the right there is a view. I'm going to bring you close in now. So here, it's a web-based application. Let me tell you what you're seeing here. This is what the application will look like. This is a screen pop of the application. What you're seeing on the left in that black rectangle there, that's the actual call coming in. On the right and in the center of the screen is the desktop workflow process. This allows me to create an application process at the desktop that could merge multiple applications in the background. When we're talking about Omni-Channel, this is critical for bridging that gap across platforms, and you'll notice down below on that screen pop, you can also do an iframe. So if you need to embed another website inside the screen pop, you can do so as well. That's one of the key pieces that I appreciate about the application. The next one here will show you, this is the email application. My apologies there. This is the email application or the interaction. You'll notice here what I've done is split my screen. Just for ease and simplicity to see, this is an actual real email application. On the right-hand side was the customer who sent an email. On the left-hand side is PureCloud, and you'll notice that where the email arrived was down below. Why is that? It's because email is not a real-time communication medium. Real-time communication mediums land at the top of the interaction pane, whereas email will land at the bottom. So this is an email interaction here. Going to our next screen, we're looking at a web chat interaction. On the right-hand side, our customer has gone to a web chat portal from our website, and on the left-hand side, the web chat, you'll notice, arrived at the interaction pane in PureCloud on the upper left because it's a real-time communication medium. But you can see across all these communications is the consistency of the interface. When you talk about the user accessibility and the agent can then focus solely on the customer because all the information is readily available and presented in the same manner regardless of the communication portal. And then lastly, we'll look at the social media. Here you can see that a Twitter feed on the right-hand side is a client went to Twitter. On the left-hand side, it popped in, and this is my interaction here that I can communicate with the client as well. So these are just 4 examples of the interaction pane. Again, PureCloud was created with omni-channel focus. Integrated application processes are part of the application and they're all built in. So the PureCloud application is omni-channel at its core with built-in integrations, open APIs, web services. There is a development resource center available on the website. It also has webhooks and cross-platform communication. If you look a little closer here, there's no cumbersome interface, just like the agent interface. If I navigate to admin in the center, go right to integrations, there's a ready-made portal for integrations that you can navigate to. When you arrive at integrations, what you will see is built-in integrations, and what you'll see here is well, starting with the bridge server. Now this is a bridge process, but to simply put it, it allows me to tie right into PureCloud and associate a server, whether it's premise-based or in the cloud, directly to applications that I would like to integrate. You'll notice here that towards the bottom, I've moved my screen up just a bit. You'll see 3 different application processes. There's Microsoft Active Directory, Microsoft Exchange, and more enterprise integrations. The idea here is that integration shouldn't have to be a cumbersome process. You basically point and click, very much the same as going to an app store and downloading an application for your iPhone or Android. It has a sort of thought process invoked in its product already. Now the next process in the integration is the built-in integrations also comprise of connectors. Once you've established your bridge connection, you go into connectors which allow you to connect to web services, Zendesk, or a variety of applications. Again, the mindset is simply download the application. You do have some configurable parameters to insert, but once you've done that and the 2 applications shake hands, you've already got a built-in mechanism. There are a variety of applications ready built for PureCloud with Omni-Channel in mind. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the application. It had some forward thought processes. It wasn't simply just a medium for providing an application for ACD. It also has built-in available applications and webhooks. So you can see here in the drop-down list, you've got generic, you've got Jenkins, you've got other applications such as Trilio, all the different options are like GitHub and Zendesk. So I like their philosophy, how they've approached it, sort of in keeping in mind with the app phone sort of process. Basically log in, hit integrations, look for your application, configure it, and download it, and you're ready to roll. They also have a robust development center. So for the folks that are looking to develop in the context of extending those applications, again, to meet additional needs of omni-channel support, there is a full online resource which has exposure to APIs. There's even a nice little, if you go to the APIs drop-down, there's a toolbox there. It gives you examples. It shows you what to configure. It's a really well-built and well-thought-out development center for easing your pains in integration. As an overview, some of the applications that that PureCloud is built on, the foundation is number one, the Bridge platform that we started with. The Bridge platform is really bidirectional communication for integrated services. It's really providing the ecosystem for data and openness, which allows you to leverage products either locally or in the cloud, and you can see that there in the diagram. The APIs are public. PureCloud, basically you can do anything with a RESTful service. It certainly lets you develop far and wide, extending cross-platform application communication. Webhooks are built in. We saw some of that where you can receive events and updates from other SaaS or software cloud-based applications. So again, it's all about bridging the communication between applications and the Edge platform. The Edge platform really allows you, there really is no all-in-one way to do things. And the PureCloud Interactive Intelligence application is not an all or nothing proposition. With the Bridge server, or you can see that the data bridge there, the Bridge platform allows you to decide where you want that server, whether it's in the cloud or local. With the telephony Edge, it also allows you to do the same thing. Do you want it in the cloud or local? In some cases, you may want local for various reasons. And when you start talking with IT administrators in heavily compliance-based or regulated industries, having these options truly gives them what they're looking for, control over their destiny. And so you can see here that PureCloud is purpose-built for multi-channel with an omni-channel solution to allow you to leverage whichever direction makes the most sense for your environment. Likewise, it's certainly a great application to slowly bridge your connectors between multi-channel support and an omni-channel solution. And you'll notice the Edge platform there. The last comment I'll make is that you can integrate with any SIP-based service, hardware, software, or PBX. So again, PureCloud is not an all or nothing proposition. So that brings us to our summary. And briefly put, what we've covered is providing a multi-channel, omni-channel foundation really does require that you put some thought and planning into how to get there. I would like to say, and hopefully I presented it with a sense of ease, but I do not want to take away from the fact that there is some intelligence and planning that needs to take place. It's not as simple as download, point, and click, but it sure is taking us much further. So if you're at a context, if you're a contact center looking to bridge the gap and to springboard into multi-channel support and providing an omni-channel experience, PureCloud certainly lays the foundation for that with integration through leveraging big data. It also provides cross-platform data awareness, and this is really the foundation for omni-channel solutions. It has and been built with the convenience, with the customer convenience in mind. That's really what today's trends are. It's all about the convenience for the customer, the ease of data access with the agent in mind as well as the customer in mind. I think everything is driven by data today, and this certainly lays the foundation to leverage the power of big data. And it's an extensible application for ease of integration and deployment. Basically, you don't have to have it one way. You can have it a way that best suits your environment. And this is some of the benefits that I appreciate and have been excited about PureCloud and interactive intelligence, because it does bridge the gap and it allows clients and contact centers to leapfrog into today's current demands for customers. With that being said, we have a few minutes left, and I thought I would open it up for questions, if there's any questions that I can answer. And if there are no questions, keep in mind you can email Susan Vargo here at svargo@inflowcommunications.com if you'd like to schedule one-on-one dialogue, and I'd be happy to have an assessment or an omni-channel assessment overview with you to see if you're ready or what steps you might take to take you to the next level.